Hello again. Hot on the heels of the new Reform MP asking the Prime Minister today at Prime Minister's Question Time if he would consider outlawing the wearing of the burqa, we learn that there will on Monday be a debate in Parliament about the desirability of making halal slaughter illegal on the grounds that it is cruel to animals. This would automatically include a prohibition on kosher slaughtering as well, because the two methods are almost indistinguishable. That's because halal slaughter is simply copied from the kosher method. In the description to this video, I give a link to the parliamentary website which announces this debate. Nobody at all wishes to admit that this move is aimed at Muslims. So the talk is of non-stunning slaughter on the grounds that this is kinder to animals. I don't really eat meat these days apart from the occasional bit of fish, so I do not really have any strong views about this either way. But I thought it might be interesting to look at the history of such demands to prohibit this kind of slaughter, because there's quite a bit of a backstory to it. It's not purely and simply a matter of animal welfare. The religious slaughter of animals has been a perennial topic for many years among animal rights activists, anti-Semites, and more recently those opposed to immigration. The killing of captive animals is never a pleasant business. I don't know how many viewers have actually witnessed what goes on in a slaughterhouse, but if they eat meat, I wouldn't recommend that they do so. Sometimes the animals are strangled or choked to death with carbon monoxide. Chickens are often half electrocuted before having their throats cut, and larger animals can be struck on the head with a hammer to stun them before they're killed. Sometimes the throat is cut with a surgically sharp blade, which causes the blood to the brain to be cut off, leading to almost instantaneous loss of consciousness before death. None of these methods are attractive, but one has been uniquely singled out for criticism, that is to say the kosher or halal slaughtering technique, which simultaneously kills the animal and also drains it of blood. I won't go into the religious reasons for these methods of slaughter, because unless you're particularly interested in Judaism or Islam, it might be a little dull. For almost 1,000 years in Europe, the so-called blood libel was perpetrated against the Jewish people, the idea that they customarily kidnapped and murdered Christian children to obtain their blood for ritual purposes. This peculiar and wholly unfounded story lingers on to this day, most notably in Russia. It became entangled in the minds of many people with the unusual requirements of Jewish methods of slaughter, which stipulate that the blood be drained from an animal before its consumption by humans. This led in 19th century Europe to calls to ban the practice of kosher slaughter on the grounds that it was needlessly cruel and inhumane. Such agitation was almost invariably mixed up with anti-Semitic attitudes. The demand for an end to kosher slaughter was a way of indirectly attacking Jews. It was hinted that the desire to see a lot of blood splashing about motivated both the kosher slaughter of animals and also the supposed practice of draining the blood from Christian children. In reality, the traditional Jewish way and Muslim way of killing animals for food is no less humane than most methods, and probably more so than some. There is no kind way of killing cows, sheep and chickens. In Germany, anxiety about the welfare of animals generally, and the practice of kosher slaughter in particular, were features of right-wing and anti-Semitic groups at the end of the 19th century. Such views found favour with the nascent National Socialist Party in the 1920s. Hitler was famously a vegetarian and great lover of animals, and one of the first things which the Nazis did on coming to power in 1933 was to ban kosher slaughter. This was done on the 21st of April 1933, just a month after Hitler had persuaded the Reichstag to pass the Enabling Act, which granted him dictatorial powers. That action should be taken so swiftly on this matter, at a time of national crisis when Hitler was still consolidating his grip on the country, shows how deeply embedded was the idea of animal welfare for the Nazis. Other measures taken at the same time included banning the shoeing of horses and a prohibition on the boiling alive of lobsters and crabs for food. Hunting was also subjected to strict controls. It is curious to note that precisely the same concern about the suffering of animals during slaughter is now being voiced by members of right-wing fringe groups in Britain who are vehemently opposed to immigration. Every so often, a report will appear in some newspaper to the effect that halal meat is being served by this or that restaurant chain or school, and that some people object because of the cruelty entailed in the Muslim method of slaughtering animals. At the back of such concerns generally lies not the welfare of animals, but the desire to find a convenient stick with which to belabour an ethnic minority whom some people dislike. I have no doubt that such a neutral description of what is actually going on here, and what has prompted next week's debate, is going to infuriate some viewers, but this cannot be helped. I have seen animals killed by various means, and only one is painless and wholly free from suffering. This is never used with farm animals being killed for their meat. Last summer I helped kill a horse. That is to say, I spoke to the creature and calmed it while somebody else actually killed it. The method used was a .32 pistol, quite an extraordinary gadget. It had been converted to single shot. It was a .32 revolver, but the chamber had been taken out and only one round at a time could be placed in. The guy had a very complicated firearm certificate to hold it. The method involved holding that pistol right up against the middle of the horse's forehead. I can assure viewers that the animal did not suffer for a split second, for the bullet scrambled its brains and destroyed its nervous system more rapidly than any pain impulses could have travelled and manifested themselves. Of course, this was fine with one animal in an otherwise empty field in the middle of the countryside, but you really wouldn't want people waving pistols about like that in a slaughterhouse. The possibility for accident would be too great. Captive bolts are typically used with cows, but these seldom kill at once, and you sometimes have to push a stick through the hole and then wiggle it about to destroy the creature's brain. This method is certainly no more humane than cutting the beast's throat. As I say, I do not have a view myself about halal or kosher slaughter, but I don't think it's as well to know what is behind such debates before they take place.